Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Insurance Town. I'm the Mayor, Heath Sheeran, and the host of this podcast, and I'm pumped you're here hanging out with me today. As you can see, I got my man Lamar hanging out in the background while I do my ad reads and get paid. Guys, I couldn't do this podcast without you, obviously my citizens, but also without my sponsors, and I'm super excited to be partnered up with Goalie Nutrition. Goalie Nutrition is an incentive-based, people-focused nutrition company committed to providing innovative products. Our products, they're formulated with quality ingredients that you can pronounce, and they are a feel-good company, a people company focused on making health simple and delicious. I'm excited they came to me with this because I've been using Goalie products for years with the ashwagandha, the ACV. I use a lot of the prebiotic, the postbiotic, all the different gummies they've got. Not that kind of gummies, ladies and gentlemen, but nutrition gummies, and they're phenomenal. Go to gogoalie.com/mayor and get 26% off. Dude, I promise you're going to love everything that you get from there. gogoalie.com/mayor. Also, ladies and gentlemen, my other sponsors in Canopy Connect, your one-click solution to getting the deck pages you need to quote your prospects, and also the intake platform they've got going on. They announced last year, and it's been a game changer for so many citizens here at Insurance Town. Go to usecanopy.com/Heath and check that out and get your discount. And lastly, but definitely not least, my friends over at MAV. You don't need a call center, just use MAV, the AI-powered insurance expert that engages unlimited leads with friendly text to quote, qualify, and connect prospects to agents in your office. If you're not using something like that, it's a game changer for your agency. People don't like getting robocalls. They don't like having some sort of person on the other end that's just trying to sell them something. Use text messages. People respond more to that. It's been a proven thing. They've got science behind it and the stats to prove it. Go to hiremav.com and check it out. Tell them the mayor sent you. All right. I'm going to get out of the way now so that you can be introduced to my friend Lamar. Lamar, what's going on, my man?
Not much. Honestly, just happy to be here. I appreciate you for taking the time, and honestly, I just a lot of appreciation. Like I said, honestly, since I met you out at the KAIA,
Yeah, man.
I wanted to reach out and hopefully be a guest on the podcast, and here we are.
Man, I'm glad that you are, dude. It's going to be awesome because I think what you guys are doing is pretty awesome. And I think it's a much needed thing too. And I think a lot of people may not understand exactly why that they might need somebody like you. So I do want to dig into that a little bit, but just from our conversations at that convention and just visiting in the hallways and in the stairwell and whatever else, like you told me some stuff about you that I was like, man, this is cool. I got to get this guy on anyway. So I'm glad you reached out. But tell me a little bit about, let's take a walk down memory lane. Tell me a little bit about Lamar previous to insurance and what led you to where you are today.
Oh, absolutely. So different background. So I'm actually coming from coaching. I was a track coach out at a lot of different Division I universities prior to being in this position. So what that means is, I think it was 2010, I was volunteering. So basically, as a track coach, you have to volunteer just in order to get into the position. So volunteered at my high school first and worked at Walmart overnight. Extremely tired. That's where all my hair went. And then went back to Kansas State. Volunteered out there and had another job in an office, first in a warehouse, then sitting down in an office, and then went out to the University of Wisconsin. And out there, I was a volunteer for another 2 years and worked at Home Depot. I got up at 4, went to work at Home Depot at 5, and then volunteered from 1:30 to about 6, and then cleaned a radio station at night. So did all that, finally got my first job. At Illinois State. I was there for 5 years and then was at Kansas State for 5 years after that. Within that time, got married, and my wife was like, look, coaching is great, but, you're moving around quite a bit. So she was like, she's from Wisconsin. So she said, "Hey, we're going back to Wisconsin," and I said, "Sounds good." That's kind of how I ended up in Wisconsin.
There you go.
Yeah,
And so from a sports background, did you play multiple sports, or were you always kind of in the track? And did you do more field or do more running? Like what was your?
for sure. Yeah, no, just field. So
Yeah.
not that much of an athlete, to be honest with you. I could jump. That was about it. So yeah, I was a high jumper. Actually went to
Okay.
college to high jump, and yeah, played football in high school, but didn't run track until I was a senior in high school. Actually,
And so from that coaching and fighting through and getting that going, like what made you decide? Obviously, your wife said, "Hey, we're going back to Wisconsin." What got you into the computer side and technology and like
yeah,
understanding?
absolutely. 100%. Yeah. So, when I got out here, I was trying to figure out what to do, really,
Yeah.
because coaching and just athletics has been a huge part of who I am. So, the second month I was out here, we had a data breach at a very large hospital system. And literally to date, it has cost them about $1.7 billion in
Wow.
either the ransomware or hiring staff back or just the losses, right? They were on paper for a long time, and it has cost them dearly. So when that happened, I thought, okay, I need to get into, one, this field because it's, first and foremost safe, but at the same time, it can help quite a few people. And I actually interviewed at Redbird Security as a tech at first, and to their credit, they're like, "Look, you're not a computer guy."
Yeah.
So they brought me more on the sales and marketing side, and then I kind of got exposed to this insurance business, which is, I'll tell you what, if I could do it all over again, I'd probably go in on the agency side and be an insurance agent or an owner, because it's one heck of a business. Great people,
Oh yeah.
and just it's unbelievable. That's kind of what I was telling you about in Kansas. I've been really surprised at how good of a industry it is.
Yeah. And I think you're right on. I've been in this industry now, for over 20 years and came into it second generation. But as a kid, like I said, I was born into it. I didn't realize how good it really was. Just from a standpoint of obviously insurance is great, and I believe in what we do and all of that. But just from a people standpoint and from a revenue standpoint and just from relationships and networking and all of that kind of stuff. You're right. It's one
Yep.
of the greatest industries ever, in my
Yeah.
opinion. And so,
It's
I,
unreal. Absolutely unreal.
and for you coming in, and a lot of industries, especially the insurance industry, can sometimes get that reputation of like, if you're not in our space, you're not in our family, then we won't really accept you. You're kind of on the outside coming in. But for you, you had a different experience. You came in and you were pretty well embraced. I saw you at the conference and people coming to you, talking to everybody and doing your thing.
For sure.
So that experience is quite the opposite for you. You kind of feel like you got indoctrinated pretty quickly, and people welcomed you in, and you were able to really feel the love, from the insurance industry from jump.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been honestly, it's been a great experience. One thing that I was told is like, hey, insurance, they got to know you first, right? They have to know
Yeah.
you in order to kind of let you in the circle. And I wouldn't say it's to that extreme. I will say that obviously they want to know you, but I kind of had a little bit of a cheat code, if you will, while we were in Kansas, because a lot of people went through Kansas State. So I'd say, hey, I went to Kansas State, and then they kind of opened up and embraced me at that point. So
Oh
it was
yeah.
more of a cheat code there. Nationally, from kind of where we work, it hasn't been very difficult. Like I said, it's from the different agencies and the different agency owners. Like they've just opened their arms and honestly listened and been very receptive. And to be honest, I've gotten quite a bit out of the relationships as well, just in terms of the learning and everything that goes along with it.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting. Again, you brought up something else. When you were doing your intro about you heard about this company that had a large breach, and a lot of people, including myself, would kind of feel like that won't ever happen to me. I'm immune to that. It only happens to either like large corporations, like we heard a couple years ago about like companies like Target that got exposed to it, and some of these larger things. Or we might think, oh, it only happens to smaller guys that don't pay attention and they don't do things right. They may have their password set at password or whatever. It's not going to happen to me. But more and more, I'm hearing of insurance agencies that have these issues, or I'm hearing of, it hits a lot closer to home now. And so,
absolutely,
having that experience and that having that story in your back, like I got to get into this, and then you get into these insurance people, and you start to build these relationships. You start to get to know them. I would imagine for someone like you, that starts to have a different effect. Like, man, I like these people. I like this industry. I don't want to see any of that kind of stuff affect them. Go ahead.
100%. Well, and the good part about it is, I'll be honest. Being a coach, as a recruiter, you got to sell quite a few things that you might not necessarily believe in. And kind of the way that I would do it is I just wouldn't talk about it, right? It's like, hey, this university might not be the fit for you, but at the same time, I'd be like, I'd go and steer it into a different direction. Our owner, so we have two co-owners, Joe and Nick. They've done such a good job of putting together the technology stack and making sure that they're present and they're there, that I can just, lead with 100% the truth, let them know how we can help them, and let them know that they can reach out. So it's been something that's, to be honest, it's a different way of doing things. And when we form those relationships, I literally just say, hey, look, at the end of the day, you can call me at any point in time throughout the day. You can literally call me in the middle of the night. It's not going to be a thing where we pick you up as a client and you never hear from me again, right? You can call my phone anytime and get to me or anybody else within our company, and we'll take care of you for sure.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting. You talk about the technology piece of that, and again, knowing when you came in, like, man, you're not a tech guy, but we'd love to put you in this other role. When you're selling or marketing, this technology type stuff to insurance people, what has been some surprising things when you first got into it, that people did or didn't know or they responded to when it came to marketing services like IT?
Gotcha. Yeah. So for us, dealing with obviously the cybersecurity and the IT part of it, I'll say that it's not the surprises from the insurance agencies or the owners. It was more of my lack of understanding on how to communicate it, right? I think everybody wants to be able to protect what they build and then also be extremely efficient. But when I walked in, I just say, hey, you need security, here's what you need. Let's do it. The truth of the matter is, not everybody is going to look at it from a technology standpoint, right? So I needed to be better on my end, just saying, let's work on these efficiencies, right? So you can get more revenue out of the business. Let's align your technology so that it's all working together and there's no friction, instead of walking in and saying, well, you need cybersecurity because you need to be protected. Well, people don't react like that, right? So it's more on my side. Like I truthfully can't be more complimentary of the insurance agency and agency owners. Like, they have been very receptive. I just needed to communicate it a little bit better on my end when I first got in.
Yeah, and I think you nailed a couple of things there. I mean, when people, because that's a big thing right now we've been talking about, especially in the last 5 or 6 years, of your tech stack and making sure everything's helping you be more efficient and less keystrokes and all of these types of things tying to your workflows and all the things you talk about. And I hear so many people, insurance agents I'll talk to, and they'll say, I've got this great tech stack, but it doesn't all work right, or I don't have this happening or that happening. And so there's some little things they can do, from the setup standpoint or from that side of it, that can help them. And as you're shaking your head, what are some of those things as you're shaking your head? What are you resonating with on that?
Oh man, everything. I mean, it's such to To be honest, I could probably talk about it for 3 hours. I know we don't have that much time. But one of the things that a lot of agencies, let's say an agency starts from the ground up, right? They're doing the best that they can to put the technology in the agency and to serve their clients, right? And to grow.
Yeah.
A lot of them are going to Best Buy. They're getting these computers and they're right out of the box and they're doing their thing. That's what they have to do. But as they grow, they have to mature a little bit. And I use that Best Buy, kind of metaphor or analogy. Hopefully, either one of those is right.
Yeah.
But I use it because the 365 environment itself has to be tuned to the agency, right? So a lot of times, if we look at an agency and we look at how it's set up just in the 365 environment, that alone, the score is usually around 5 to 10% of where they need to be, right? After we get done to them, we can get it to around 96%. It's never going to be 100%.
Yeah.
Right? But we can get it to around 96%. And then at that point, everything within that environment is working for them. So then you're not having, things go down. You're not fighting with email. You're not fighting with redundant notifications. And it's tuned so that everything within that environment can help grow and make revenue for the agency.
No, and that's awesome. And I love that you could put out those numbers there specifically, because I think that's a huge, like, to go from that 5% all the way up to that 90-something%.
Absolutely.
And people don't necessarily recognize that, again, try to get a product right out of the box and just plug in a bunch of things together, expect it all to work right. It just doesn't work that way. And you get some people banging their head against the wall and they don't think about those kind of things, when they're thinking about, they're so worried about making that next close, making that next sale, 100%. Getting the next renewal, that they don't necessarily think about those things. I'm a former agency owner myself, and I've worked in agencies and been a producer and done all the things. It's like, we just expect those things to work. It's like, oh, it's technology. It's going to work. It's going to fix. It's going to save the day.
Yep. And that's the thing. And the truth of the matter is, again, it's up on me to communicate that, because unless you have experience with it, it's something that you kind of think like, hey, if I turn this thing on, it's going to start working for me, right? But a lot of the agencies I walk into, they're like, to be honest, I hate this technology. I wish I didn't have to do it. But technology is there to facilitate the growth of the business, right? And it should, any technology you put in should make things easier for everybody in that agency. And a lot of times we see that that's not the case, and we can tune it and align it so that that ends up being the case, so that it can be a revenue generator for you.
And so why would an agency need insurance specific IT help or insurance specific MSP?
Yeah, for sure. And very good question. Being a former coach, I remember at Kansas State, I would always take recruiting documents. I would go to the scanner, and you scan it, it goes to the Q drive, right? And for whatever reason, it was either working one day or not working the next, right? And I'm thinking, okay, this is just part of it. I'm going to have to walk back and forth a couple of times and I'll finally get it, right? An insurance specific MSP is one, going to make sure that, for what we do, we make sure that we're not putting a Band-Aid on anything. If anything goes down, we're fixing it first and foremost, because at the end of the day, if anything goes down for an agency, right, that's an emergency, right? So we want you guys to be up and running as much as possible so that you can continue to make revenue and serve those clients. But at the same time, from a security standpoint, agencies have certain state and federal regulation that they have to deal with, right? So they have personal health information, they have financial information. There's so much information that flows through an insurance agency that is on that computer before it goes into a carrier portal that needs to be protected. So, for instance, New York and let's say Kentucky are going to have very different compliance standards, right? And so we have to tune those agencies so that they meet those compliance standards. So we have agencies that sell nationwide, right? And what we're going to do is we're going to say, okay, if New York is the strictest or California is the strictest, we're going to tune basically just by them onboarding they're compliant with every data security law and regulation throughout the country. And then from an IT standpoint, we make sure that we also work with their agency management system because, as you probably know, getting on the phone with some of them, not and it's not their fault, right? They have their support teams, but sometimes it takes a long time, and that's time that you can't, sell, that you can't bind coverage, that you can't do a lot of things to help a client. So we want to be able to get to it fast, quick, so that they're back up and running.
And so, I mean, that's a big statement. So do you guys, have you been kind of approved by some of these management systems to be able to do some of that work on their behalf? Or you have a relationship with, go ahead.
100%. Sorry about that.
You're good.
I get excited sometimes. So
I love it. I love the excitement. I love it, bro.
For sure. Yeah, so we're Applied partners. So we work with Applied Epic for almost 30 years. We used to go to the conference when it was named something completely different. We're at that conference every year. We work with EasyLinks as well. So we actually have an Applied agency management system that we go into and work in. And then we also are familiar with EasyLinks, AMS 360, literally the full gambit, Hawks Off, so that we can make sure that our agencies are always up and running. If we get something that we're not familiar with, we usually get familiar with it, mark it down, because at the end of the day, if an agency comes in with something that we don't know, we're probably going to pick up another agency at some point that is using that same agency management system. So we want to make sure that we can get to it as quick as possible so we can eliminate that downtime.
That's huge, man. Because that is a frustration, because if your management system is down or you have something going on there, like you said, you may not be able to sell that deal. You might be able to close that deal, or you may not be able to
100%
get that communication out. You might not be able to do whatever it might be that you need to do, a certificate or a ID card. That's huge. And so if you guys can expedite that time, that's something you can't put a price on half the time.
For sure. And yeah, and like I said, we would prefer you call us first so that we can figure it out. If we can't, we then get on the phone with the agency management system. We work it out and then get back to you. Like right now, our average response time is 3 minutes and our time to resolution is 17. Right. So right now is top in the industry. And at the end of the day, we're trying to make sure that you're up and running so that you can, at the end of the day, continue to run your business.
And when you talk to agencies or people listening right now to this podcast, and they hear you talking about insurance specific and the things you opened up with and talked about, how often do you have that people like turn their head, look at it like, man, I didn't know that was important. I didn't know that was something I should think about. Because again, like I said, people aren't thinking about those types of things. Their insurance regulations and the state specific and all of that, tuning that kind of stuff. How often do you get that? Oh gosh, I didn't think about that.
Oh, it happens a lot. Yeah, it happens a lot. And it's one of those things where usually it's an agency that is, let's say they're coming from, kind of a generalist IT. And usually they run into an issue because either the management system, just isn't complying, or there's some sort of friction within there. So clearly they're not thinking about any of the compliance or the regulation stuff. But when I bring that up, they're like, okay, I think I understand why you also have this security piece, right? So it just kind of ties everything together. And it's one less thing to worry about. And to be honest, we want to be able to take the one hat or several hats off of the agency owner and even the operations team so that they can, focus on those other things. Because as you know, agency owners and operations and just agents in general wear so many different hats, right? And if we can take a couple off of them, they become a little bit more efficient.
Yeah, and again, how often do you guys get pulled into, maybe agency owner purchases a new piece of tech. They just went to a conference, maybe KIA. It's like, oh man, that's an awesome piece of tech. They get shiny objects in them. They buy this piece of tech. How often you get pulled into some of the onboarding on some of that technology, or how often you get pulled into some of those conversations of like, man, we got to get Redbird involved so they kind of know what's going on there.
Yeah, often. We were actually out at one of the conferences in Florida, and we actually had one of our clients out there, and she walked up to us and simply said, "Hey, I I have shiny object syndrome. Like, can you tell me if this is aligned for what we need to do? Because she's like, I do have other things that I get and we end up not using. So I'm like, okay, let's have that conversation. In fact, let's put this thing down on a calendar so that we can talk about it. Because the truth of the matter is, agents are kind of notorious for getting a lot of things to get more efficient, and then realize that they not able to use them. So yeah, we want to come in on that side of things as well in terms of just anything technology, so that we can say, okay, yes, this, no, this, and then we can kind of align it with how the agency runs. Because having things aligned within the agency is a game changer. Like, it supercharges you.
100%. Now, I'd be remiss if I didn't get into a little bit of AI, talking to you about some of this stuff with technology.
Absolutely.
Everybody wants to have an AI component or AI as a feature, or there's a bunch of .ai companies out there. And I'm an AI fan. I love AI. Yep. Don't get me wrong, but how start broad level? How has that affected what Redbird does and what you do, and what your team does? High level, and then we can dig in a little bit deeper from there if we want to.
Well, I mean, let's break it down even to the simplest level within our within our response system. We do have an AI component built in that will look at the severity of things and somewhat reorder them. Right. So within our chat, I should say, because you can reach us a whole bunch of different ways. So we have that will look at things, reorder them, and then send it to us, or help kind of resolve it, right? So we have those things, but playing around with the AI part of things, whether it's AI agents or finding different vendors that help an agency, whether it be answering the phones or scheduling things on a calendar, it's thrown kind of a wrench in things, because when you add one component, it opens up a security scare a little bit, right? So it's making sure that we can vet everything within that environment and make sure that it's not an open claw where it has access to everything, and then any bad actor can get in there. So what we've started doing is having webinars once a month to go over not only the things that are working within an agency, but also recommendations for what they can do to streamline their operations. And we also have built out or helped build out a couple of AI agents within Microsoft Copilot as well.
So someone deploys some sort of AI technology in their agency, that can open up a trickle effect to other pieces of tech they have all connected, and with open APIs or closed APIs or certain APIs connecting, that one piece could mess up other connections.
Yeah, because if you think about it, so let's take, obviously most agencies aren't using Salesforce, but let's take Salesforce. In order for Salesforce to, for their AI agents to grab the information, they have to be connected both from Salesforce and whatever the business is on the other side, right?
Yeah. And
if that gets compromised, then they have information to all that, information, and they can kind of dump it, right? They can. So one of the use cases was Anthropic actually wrote a paper where it looked like a state actor, essentially tricked Anthropic into giving information on really big companies, right? And so they learned from it, built in security protocols, but that's just one way of extracting more data. So we always look at it from a safety standpoint, and then make sure that we can close everything down so that agency is safe. Because, whether it's encryption or making sure that we know what's going on every device in that agency, if any type of breach can be catastrophic, right? And then that opens up a whole can of worms.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And so, talk to me a little bit as we start to wrap up a little bit. Tell me, maybe, I don't know how to say this, but the hidden cost maybe of the aging hardware, those legacy systems, and some of that kind of stuff. Okay, I'll stop there.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So aging hardware. So what we do is we want to make sure, one, that it's in warranty, right? Because if we have warranties on everything that's deployed within that agency, anything goes down, we can replace it. The good thing about what we do is we usually are allowed or have the foresight to get ahead of any type of hardware going down, right? So we want to eliminate those hidden costs, right? So let's say a computer goes down in an agency. We don't want the agency owner saying, "Hey, this computer went down today. We need a new one tomorrow." What we usually see is, "Hey, based on the logs, this thing is gonna, end up dying or going, start moving slowly within the next 6 months. So then we can, plan it out and replace it." So, that's a segue. But yeah, aging hardware opens up other security flaws because they don't have the technology.
That's something that people don't think about. I mean, I go into agencies and I see, old desktop computers or old operating system for that matter, or, physical servers that are way past their warranty, as you mentioned, or network and firewall equipment that just can't even filter the threats that are out there today.
Yep. I mean, if the way I think that people should think about it is anything that's so think about it like an operating system, right? An operating system is updated and patched based on the newest vulnerabilities, right, and flaws. If you have a piece of old tech, it's working. Let's say it's kind of just getting by. It doesn't have the actual features from a hardware standpoint to be able to block a lot of things that are coming in. And like you said, we see it a lot when we first go into agencies, and that's one of the things. It's like, hey, we got to update this hardware, these computers. Hopefully, they have a server. We can decommission it and get them into the cloud. A lot of the times, the firewall, even the security software has lapsed, so it's really not doing much, if anything, right? And I kind of want to hit on something that you said earlier, where a lot of people will say, "Hey, we're not big enough to actually target," right? And I look at it this way: just me personally, just average random guy gets emails about how I didn't pay a toll, or I get the text message of the UPS didn't deliver your package, right? If they're sending them to me, they're definitely sending them to agencies, right? And really what they're doing is they're just sending them out and hoping that anybody will take the bait. And they've gotten very sophisticated to the point where you have literal what they call phishing as a service or ransomware as a service. Well, they'll literally set up a business on these things, right? And so what we do, obviously, to combat that, we have layered security, which is a whole bunch of things. We monitor the device, we threat hunt, but at the same time, I know a lot of agencies, the owners, they go to sleep at night wondering if somebody's going to click a link, right? So we have a zero trust architecture on top of it that protects everybody from it. However, the cyber policy is also going to ask that you have certain things, and one of those is security awareness training. And we have that built into our stack as well. And it's updated to the newest threats that are out there. I actually had to take 2 yesterday. But they're updated to the newest threats that are out there. And they're real, 5 to 10 minute, cartoons. And everybody in the agency has to pass it with an 80% pass rate, or they have to retake it. So the knowledge really sinks in. They're brought up to the standard from a compliance standard, state and federal law, and from their cyber policy standard as well.
Dude, that's awesome. Everybody loves a good cartoon too. So,
dude, I'll tell you what. The first time I saw these, I literally thought, I'm like, this is ridiculous and stupid. And then it stuck with me though, and I'm like, wait. I'm watching the first episode. It's like, the first one is like this little girl named Dee Dee, and she's a hacker. And I'm like, it stuck with me. I'm like, they know what they're doing. And I think it's actually, from what I remember, it's one of the animators, I think, in South Park that actually does
That's
the
awesome.
cartoons. So yeah, it's pretty cool.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think that's great. And you're keeping them up to date on the compliance and all that kind of stuff. That's another value add
100%.
that you guys are bringing to the table. And man, there's so many things I wanted to get into with you, and we're already running out of time on this. So we'll have to take this off air. We'll bring you back on again because, there's a whole bunch of stuff I didn't get into with remote work and the amount of security there. And there's a lot there. But
there's a lot, yeah.
Tell the audience real quick before we wrap up completely is, okay, so we brought up the name Redbird. So tell them, real quickly, if you can, about Redbird Security website, how they can contact you, what they should be looking for on the website, things of that nature.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, Redbird is going to be redbirdsecurity.com for our website. Honestly, go there, browse. You'll see right when you open it, IT designed specifically for insurance agencies. You can also contact us on LinkedIn. I have not a huge LinkedIn presence, but I try to be active on LinkedIn, and it'll be up under my name, Lamar Garrett. And then you can go to our LinkedIn page for Redbird Security as well. And again, if you want to reach out. We can do anything from an assessment just to see where you guys are at, or have deeper conversations. We would definitely love to connect.
Yeah, dude, I love it. And you can see right here, I'm looking at the website right now. Y'all do secured managed IT service, managed backup, Office 365, IT, staff augmentation. Y'all got so many things there, and articles to help people that can read. There's all kinds of things on here. So you make sure y'all go check that out, redbirdsecurity.com. Lamar, dude, I appreciate you so much for coming on. I'm glad you reached out. I'm glad we met in Kansas, and hopefully we'll meet up again soon in person. If you ever go to a conference, you can't miss this guy. You're a pretty tall fella yourself, and you stand heads and tails, above a lot of people, and so, how tall are you?
6'4".
Yeah,
6'4". Yeah, I mean
you're gonna see him. You're gonna see him, and so in a sea of insurance people, you don't see a whole lot of 6'4" guys. So you're gonna see him. So, but yeah, and you're gonna see that big old smile. So, man, I appreciate you being here.
I appreciate you for sure.
Thank you for being a part of the show. So, I'll let you know whenever I can get you back in here. Hopefully, we can finish this conversation sometime.
Yeah, that'd be great. Like I said, I appreciate it. I appreciate you taking the time and just appreciate the opportunity for sure.
Yeah, brother.